Before we descend into the shadows of the past, a brief note. This journey is a work of historical reconstruction. It is woven from the harsh realities of a bygone era, intended to illuminate the silent courage of those long erased by the tides of prejudice. In the heart of the Atlanta archives, Dr. Rebecca Morrison stumbles upon a secret that has slept for over a century, a portrait from 1903, a jarring composition, a man of influence, Charles Whitfield, and a woman, Louisa Johnson, in elaborate bridal attire. At that time, such a union was a legal impossibility, a direct defiance of Georgia's ironclad constraints. But as the lens zooms in, the artificial warmth of the image evaporates, replaced by a chilling realization. As technology magnifies the smallest details, the facade begins to crumble. The clasped hands are not a symbol of unity. They are a silent struggle. Louisa Johnson's fingers are not at rest. They are arranged in a geometry of desperation, a physical cipher, a plea traveling through space and time. This is not the posture of a bride, but the signal of a soul imprisoned within a theater of possession. Historical records identify Charles Whitfield, a titan of industry, yet a phantom of absolute control. The photograph was never meant to celebrate love. It was a testament to subjugation. Behind the pristine white dress lies the story of the Johnson family strivers seeking dignity amidst systemic weight, only to fall into the machinery of coercion. Louisa Johnson, a young girl with eyes reflecting an ocean of suppressed sorrow, used the very moment her freedom was stolen to leave a message for the future. 120 years later, that silent scream has finally found an audience. We are not merely looking at a photograph. We are witnessing an enduring struggle for human dignity. History may be suppressed, but the truth always finds a way to leak through the cracks of time. The truth begins to leak from the faded ink of the Johnson family. We have lost track of our Louisa. Martha Johnson's plea to her pastor rang out like a hopeless bell. 3 weeks of separation, intercepted letters, and a terrifying silence from behind the gates of Charles Whitfield's estate. But in a society dominated by privilege, the voices of the downtrodden are often buried. The pastor, instead of being a protector, chose to believe in the hollow charity of a man of status. A mother's suspicion was twisted into ingratitude, leaving Louisa Johnson alone in the talons of a brutal reality. The search leads Rebecca and Marcus to James Morrison, a descendant of the photographer from long ago. Within a worn leather journal from August 1903, William Morrison left behind haunting reflections. He wasn't just taking a photo, he was documenting a staged crime. This was perhaps the hardest task of my career, William wrote. He described a trembling Louisa Johnson in an expensive but ill-fitting dress bruises haunting her wrists as Charles Whitfield tightened his control. In the moment the shutter fell, Louisa used her last shred of agency to arrange her fingers, a desperate effort to beam a signal of salvation to the outside world. Marcus uncovers even darker archives. Charles Whitfield was not just an individual, he was the manifestation of a systemic exploitation. Between 1899 and 1905, at least 6 young souls fell into the same script disappearance isolation and the stripping of dignity under the guise of domestic service. The testimony of Sarah, one who narrowly escaped that crystal prison, stripped away the villain's mask. These women were treated as property threatened with legal shackles and psychological warfare. Meanwhile, Charles Whitfield remained untouched, shielded by political alliances and the absolute immunity of the elite. The system may have protected the perpetrator in life, but history is an impartial judge. The silent signals of Louisa Johnson and the agony of the Johnson family are no longer scattered fragments. They have become a powerful indictment echoing across a century to remind us of the cost of silence. Historical truth always needs guardians. If you are moved by this journey for justice, please share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other hidden corners of human history. In a world where justice was blinded by race and power, the Johnson family stood utterly alone. Yet amidst the dense darkness of captivity, Louisa Johnson chose not to be a passive victim. That forced wedding portrait was more than a record of abuse. It became a beacon of defiance. Every hand gesture, every gaze piercing through the lens was a manifesto of suppressed freedom. Rebecca realized that Louisa had transformed her moment of humiliation into a historical cipher, a timeless message confirming that her spirit was never conquered. History records desperate yet heroic efforts. Henry Johnson, a father bearing his own physical scars, used his remaining strength to confront Charles Whitfield's estate. But instead of empathy, he was crushed by a biased legal system. Organizations like the NAACP and dedicated lawyers like Robert Foster tried to break the wall of silence, but Whitfield's influence and societal indifference slammed every door shut. Even when a white witness like Eleanor Hartwell spoke out about the bruises on Louisa's face, the truth remained buried under the dust of privilege. Louisa's trail seemed to vanish into thin air after the winter of 1903 until a record at Freedman's Hospital in Washington, D.C. surfaced like a miracle. It told the story of a woman fleeing a Georgian hell, her body covered in scars, but her will intact. Under the protection of social worker Catherine Wells, Louisa slowly broke her silence. She revealed the 8 months of captivity and the horror of being forced into that white dress to create a facade of consent. Louisa confirmed that the subtle movement of her fingers in the photograph was a deliberate signal, a flickering hope that someone someday would understand her pain. Louisa Johnson's journey serves as proof that truth may be delayed, but it can never be extinguished. Through carefully coded messages, she found a way to reconnect with her family, turning her life from a tragedy into an epic of survival. We look at that photograph no longer to see sorrow, but to see the extraordinary strength of a human being who refused to be forgotten. In May 1904, a handwritten letter appeared like a miracle in Martha Johnson's hands. Trembling lines burned with hope. "Mother, I am alive." Amidst the surrounding darkness, Louisa Johnson had achieved a spectacular rebirth. She pleaded with her family to let the world believe she had vanished, for in that era, a staged death was the only shield to protect the lives of those she loved. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, a play of deception was being meticulously staged. Charles Whitfield, a man perpetually cloaked in the mantle of respectability, used fire to incinerate the evidence of his crimes. A blaze at his private estate, an unrecognizable body, and a finger pointed at an unnamed servant for carelessness. Whitfield needed Louisa's death to preserve his hollow honor. He could not admit a caged bird had taken flight, as that would be a confession of illegal captivity. He chose to erase her existence on paper, turning her into ash in the eyes of the public. But truth always finds a way to leak through the cracks. The Atlanta Independent. A black community newspaper bravely recorded a different reality. A woman's silhouette fleeing in the darkness of February, a fire set not by accident, but to mask an escape. The Johnson family had to live a grim, double life, publicly mourning a deceased daughter while secretly nurturing hope for a child living in exile. Louisa's safety was bought with the family's perpetual silence, a heavy price for freedom in an unjust society. More than a century later, as the old wedding portrait is decoded, we no longer see a victim, but a victor. Louisa Johnson did not perish in Whitfield's fire. She rose from the ashes of prejudice. Her story is a testament that the light of truth may be obscured, but it can never be extinguished by any power. Rebecca and Marcus unearthed the final link years of correspondence between Martha Johnson and Catherine Wells. In Washington, D.C., far from the shadows of Atlanta, a new life sprouted from the ruins. Under a pseudonym, Louisa Johnson didn't just survive, she thrived. From a seamstress, she became an angel in white, a nurse marrying a kind man, and building a home filled with love. Yet freedom came with a staggering price. To protect her, her parents in Atlanta carried the secret of her death to their graves. Louisa's presence on this earth was a locked truth, a silent parental sacrifice to ensure their only daughter's peace. Louisa never allowed the past to stay buried. In 1925, she stood before an investigative committee as an invisible witness. She did not use her real name, but her story carved a powerful indictment of possession and injustice into history. She survived not just to breathe, but to ensure that when the world was ready to listen, the silent scream in that old photograph would finally find its answer. 6 months of rigorous research led Rebecca and Marcus to Dr. Michelle Foster Louisa's great-granddaughter at Howard University. In a home preserving her great-grandmother's legacy, the full truth was finally unveiled. Louisa Johnson lived to be 94, carrying the memory of Atlanta like a scar of honor. She left behind a journal, her final words serving as a magnificent summary. "I have lived a good life. I have loved and been loved." She knew that the forced wedding portrait still drifted through the currents of time, carrying her frozen scream, waiting for the day justice would be served through the understanding of future generations. Louisa Johnson's story reminds us that history is not just about numbers or battles. It is the heartbeat of spirits that refuse to be conquered. The 1903 photograph is no longer a symbol of captivity, but a testament to a soul that transcended shackles to write her own epics. Louisa Johnson's final journal entries were more than just reflections. They were a plea sent to the future. "I pray that one day someone will see and understand." She yearned for her pain to become a beacon, helping the world recognize the thousands of other women who vanished into the silence of dehumanizing laws. She saw through a society that deliberately turned away from silent screams, and she chose to leave behind fragments of truth, waiting for an era where humanity would be placed above privilege. That prayer has been answered. At the National Museum of African American History and Culture, a landmark exhibition titled Silent Testimony has opened its doors. The centerpiece is none other than that 1903 photograph, once a tool of possession, now an ironclad evidence of defiance. Alongside the image are the pieces of a life, the remorseful photographer's diary, the scarred medical records, and the tear-stained letters of the Johnson family. Together they speak as one, shattering the fog of the Jim Crow era. The exhibition's caption is written with blunt, fiery words. This photograph does not record a marriage but a crime. It exposes a system that granted absolute immunity to perpetrators and stripped the innocent of their voices. Today, Louisa Johnson is no longer an anonymous servant in Charles Whitfield's files. She is an icon of resilience, a woman who used her very captivity to write a manifesto of freedom for future generations. At the opening, Dr. Michelle Foster stood motionless between two dimensions of history. To the left was the 1903 photograph, the embodiment of shackles and frozen pain. To the right was a photo of Louisa in 1960, a 76-year-old woman with a face radiating serenity surrounded by her thriving descendants. "My great-grandmother didn't just survive," Michelle choked out to the crowd. "She transcended the darkness to create a magnificent life." Louisa turned her scars into wings, using the hands once forced to clasp a captor's hand to deliver thousands of new lives as a nurse, building a family with pure resilience. Rebecca took the podium, her eyes fixed on Louisa's hand gesture in the old portrait. For 120 years, that signal for help was obscured by the dust of indifference. But Louisa placed a bet on the future. She believed that even if the world of her time turned away one day, there would be eyes keen enough and hearts brave enough to see the truth. That photograph is no longer a symbol of imprisonment. It has become a transgenerational transmitter, a testament to a refusal to be erased. It tells of an unjust system that condoned evil, but it simultaneously honors the extraordinary strength of those who stood atop the ruins of their dignity to write a new chapter for their lives. As thousands walk through the exhibition, they are not just looking at a picture. They are witnessing the truth. Louisa's silent scream has finally shattered the wall of deliberate historical amnesia. When her voice is heard, it doesn't just reclaim justice for her. It speaks for the countless other souls buried under the heavy dust of the Jim Crow era. The photograph's mission is complete. It could not save the Louisa of 1903, but it has saved her honor and legacy for eternity. Louisa Johnson's story is a powerful reminder: truth can be delayed, but it can never be buried forever. If you believe every life deserves to be recorded with fairness and dignity, please comment your thoughts, hit like, and subscribe. Join us as we continue to spread stories of the undying human spirit. Thank you for watching until the very end.